Hello everyone, and welcome to my 1000 subscriber review special. The 3.0 ROBO-DOU Galient. Alright, and starting off as always with the articulation. This thing is big and heavy. Thankfully it's so tall that I can pretty much do all the upper body stuff without having to hold it. Anyway, head is on 2 ball joints. As far as I can tell, the one on the bottom is a ball joint, so ridiculous amount of range. It can of course fully rotate, but that's also for the transformation, so get that back there. It's a little bit annoying to have to reline up that little segment right underneath the chin, but not a huge deal. There we go. The shoulders can move forward that much. I have like 3 complaints about this entire figure, and that's one of them. The shoulders are overly limited for something that should be able to do two-handed sword poses. So this would be acceptable if the shoulder here could go more than 90 degrees down, because that's not across the chest now, is it? Or the get that past the side skirt. This is actually separate and can hinge out on its own up about that far. Both the front and the back can hinge out slightly. I don't want to overdo it because it might scratch the paint or break something, but these little bits can hinge outward for a little bit more range. Aside from that, it has a full metal frame, so I'm a little bit worried about this, but this can move separate and can hinge out. Be careful not to chip the paint on this. They warn you in the instructions. There's a rotation right here at the bicep. Not a ton, just because it kind of bounces against the shoulder, but it is there. There's a double jointed elbow. This one slides in, which is nice. You get about 90 degrees off of that, but then you also get an extra... yeah, that's about as much as you could reasonably hope to get out of that, to be honest. Now there is also a rotation below here. You can see it moving a little bit, but it's really tight and honestly doesn't really have that much articulation anyway, so I just kind of forget that's there. There is a side-to-side hinge, which for a sword wielder, you'd think they would have had that hinge up and down instead of side-to-side, but it does get out of the way, so I guess that's why they did it. The fists are ball-jointed, though the ball joint is kind of set deep in there. You get a little bit of wiggle rotation. Not a ton front to back, again. I think they would have done that for a sword wielder. There is a ridiculous bend there, and it also reveals a bunch more scaling, I guess you would call that, in there. I love mech waists that have this scale look to it, so I'm super happy with that. And also that is, you know, a good 45 degrees, which is pretty great. And there's, of course, a waist rotation. You probably do want to move out the falcon head a little bit when you do that, but nothing scratches against each other as long as you do that, so can get a full rotation, but I don't really see the point of showing that off. The front skirts are ball jointed, just like a Gundam kit. They're so short they don't really get in the way anyway, but it's still nice to have them out of the way for any really high kicks you want to do. Side skirts are on a hinge and then a ball joint in there, which is completely gets out of the way, no complaints there. Back skirt you have to put on out of the box, and it's just on a ball joint, but it gets a ridiculous amount of range for that. Now this does actually have the Master Grade style hip, where it can slide down on a little track in there. I'm a little bit worried about doing this, because, again, this is an expensive figure, but all this metal kind of has me worried. Okay. And shift a couple clicks, 3 clicks, and I think that's all the way down now. Yes, so it actually does sort of ratchet in place there, which is nice. And that's a pretty high kick. I mean, it can sit down. Wouldn't really expect more than that out of it. Another thing to watch out for is not to scratch the paint on these bits here. Warned you in the instructions, but I do want to point it out. Let's get that back up in there. Due to the transformation, this can move down, but it does also function as a... This is a really strong ratchet, by the way. I'm just... You get 4 ratchets there, and then there's also a second joint up at the top, though you want to slide it down a little bit in order to get that. And it doesn't move a ton, but... Come on. I know you can hinge back. I've seen in the instructions. There we go. Just gotta be a little gentle with it. And that gets, I think you can actually go out a little bit further than that still. I don't want to force it, but I mean, that's more than enough anyway. Right, let's get that back now. Slide that back. Come on. There we go. Really tight ratchets. Now, this can move up, and this is the other real complaint that I have, is this really should have been ball jointed. It looks like it's ball jointed, but it's not. This is fixed. It can just hinge up and down. There's also a little spring-loaded thing on both the legs here, so that this can go all the way back for the transformation, but we'll get to that. However, the feet themselves, there's no actual rotation in them, which is fine, because this would get in the way anyway. But they do angle side to side really, really nicely. And there's a nice sort of mechanical thing going on with the hinges here. The toe piece itself can hinge down a little bit. So, pretty deep bend there. And it can also bend down very slightly this way, though there's more just overcorrecting. There is also a transformation joint in there, so we can get really far back if you want. And again, it's like full metal in here. So it's a little bit tight and concerning. Also, they said these were supposed to rotate, but they most certainly do not, and these ones are just sculpted in. I'm not complaining about that, by the way. I'm actually happier that they don't. That would have been an absolute nightmare to deal with if these actually rotated. Maybe they do and they're just stuck, but not worth it anyway. Works fine. It has all the detailing there. It has 3-0 and sunrise on the feet, which is... Wouldn't want it anywhere else, to be honest. Be easy to paint over that if I wanted to, but it's the bottom of the feet. Who cares? And now, there is a bit more articulation, but that is for the transformation. So we'll get to that in a bit. Okay. Since this is, as far as I'm aware, the only English review of this thing, I want to spend the time to actually go over everything properly. You get instructions. Well, yeah, I guess it is instructions, not building instructions, but it's don't break anything, dumbass instructions. Showing you about all the transformation and everything. Let's go over all the stuff. I want to start with this first. It's a really small thing and it's very funny. The crotch piece comes yellow, but you also get a red one. And it's because the Okawara line art for the upgrade has it red, and I decided to watch the episode where it gets its upgrade, just to be sure, and yeah, it has the red for about 15 seconds, and then it swaps back to yellow. That's very funny. Because right when it first comes out of the shadow, it has the red, and then the moment you get a second shot at it, it's yellow again. It's really funny. Also, yeah, this is just a peg. It actually comes off fairly easy. You just swap it over. I'm going to be leaving it yellow because I prefer the yellow, and apparently so did the animators. Alright, next up, let's go over the hands. The one final... This isn't a problem with the actual figure. This is just something I would have preferred if they had done the thing that some companies do where it's a ball joint on a stick and you unplug the peg instead of the ball joint itself. And that's only because this is a big ball joint and it feels like I'm going to break something every time I go to swap the hands. You get closed fists. You also get 2 sword-holding hands, which is a little bit terrifying to actually get the sword into. And I mean, yeah, good luck. This is what it looks like before you get the sword in, and this is what it looks like after. So yeah, you can kind of see the wants to focus. The thumb got stretched out a little bit, and it's just you have to slide the sword in and then rotate it in underneath the fingers. It's annoying and terrifying, and I feel like I'm gonna scratch something or break the thumb every time I put it in. I really wish they had just made the handle separate, or at least the little pommel on the bottom pop off just to slide it in. It would have been a much better engineering standpoint there, and they could have reused the part on both versions because it's the same anyway, so just a little bit of oversight there. I would have engineered it slightly differently. You get 2 trigger fingers for the twin rifle, which we'll get into shortly. Weirdly enough, that does actually have the handle slide off. It comes separated in the package. Again, just a slightly weird engineering choice there. Finally, you do get 2 beautiful, nice, dynamic splayed hands, and God, these look good. These look so ridiculously good. I kind of wish they had sculpted in the little panel there, but that's not something to complain about. I mean, look how good this looks. This is such a nice dynamic hand, and these are all sort of a matte finish gunmetal, and it looks beautiful. Next up we have the sword, and I do want to go over the whip form first. These are scary. This is very thin. There's a wire running through all this, and I'm pretty sure they painted the wire silver as well to match. Not that I'm complaining, but I'm pretty sure it's just bare metal, and then they painted the silver on top of it. It is a bendy wire. I'm kind of terrified to bend it more than I should, so I'm not going to be bending it too much, but it does, hold a curve really well. Comes completely straight in the package, and it's diagonal because it's that long. I mean, this is significantly bigger than, well, longer anyway, than the actual. It's almost twice as long as Galient itself. I'm going to leave that back there real quick so that we can go over the sword in its actual sword form. And again, this is what I mean. This pommel should have just been a separate piece that popped off, because it's the same of both. They could have just had that. It would have been much easier. That's all I'm saying. But this is a beautiful. Again, this is a nice gunmetal, and this is a nice silver. Is that very slightly bent? Maybe? It's not very noticeable, even if it is. Yeah, this is a... Got sidetracked, because I think that it is very, very slightly bent, but this is packed flat in the package anyways. It's probably just my eyes playing tricks on me. Looks absolutely beautiful, though. Again, this is the same silver, obviously, but it's a very, very pretty silver. And, yeah, the whip is almost twice as long. Which is accurate. Obviously, you got the spacing in between each segment, but the whip is huge. I will most likely be displaying this as the upgraded form on my shelf, at least with the shoulder cannon. I might end up putting the shield into, like, some blue tack or something to have it standing up. I'll figure something out there. But anyway, speaking of the shoulder cannon, this is a really simple piece. There we go. I haven't actually moved this yet, so it's probably a little bit tight, but it is supposed to actually move because you can collapse it down onto the back this way, and then when you actually want it to fire, you rotate it up around on both of these pegs, and you swap that over by coming around here and rotating this out, and you just pull this piece off. I will do that later off camera. Again, this is like a 300 Canadian, 200 US figure, so I'm not going to be doing stupid things on camera, like almost breaking something. Thankfully, it does come with a warranty sheet, but still I want to avoid, stupidity. Speaking of the shield is huge. The shield is like the size of a high grade. This is big. Folds up for another accessory. But the bunker bust, the thing that lets it turn into a mobile artillery does actually slide down. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in the promotional images this was a round spike and not a triangular one. Not that I'm complaining, I think this actually looks great, but it's kind of a weird thing for it to be changed, You do actually get 2 different handles for this. You get the holding handle, as well as the one that actually mounts onto the arm and has a nice little ball joint, which is ungodly tight. This, obviously these pegs go into the squares there on the arm. It can fit on either arm, but like, Come on. Thinking about it, that's probably why there's a rotation below the elbow. Anyway, speaking of that mobile turret, you do get the assault cannon, the big double-barrel shotgun, basically, that it gets. This looks really good. And yeah, this handle actually comes off. It's separate in the packaging. This is as tall as Galient itself. This is a very big gun. Like, you can kind of see. Yeah, there's a couple extra parts. The well, not extra, but a couple parts left. The cannon wire plugs into the bottom there, and then it hooks into this alternate panel on the leg, which has the peg hole there. You swap that off by just sort of wiggling it with the tabs that are there. And there's also the cockpit for the bad with names. Galient is my favorite Mecha series, and I still can't remember the name. It's in the instructions. Give me 1 sec. Strike vehicle. You see why I didn't remember? Galient has this problem where half the mechs are named something ridiculous and the other half are like overly normal, so it's hard to remember the names. Yeah, in the unboxing I thought this was the wrong red, but no, I'm just an idiot. That's actually the top panel and this one's the bottom one. I do kind of feel like they could have molded in the panel line there, because it's there's no square on the leg here. Just, I would have preferred that, but it's not a huge deal either way. It is really nice. It has the monitor in there. It's not painted. I kind of wish they had painted that, but I mean, I could paint it if I really wanted to. I'm not going to paint it because this is an expensive figure, but I could. And again, you just pop off the panel on the leg and put this one in. Alright, getting into the first transformation anyway. First thing I want to do with this, because once you flip it... Anyway, you want to compress down the elbows. It's kind of hard to do, honestly, but you just sort of... That's about as far as it wants to go in. Don't have to worry about the shoulders, as long as the arms are just flat. You want to bring the fists up, kind of, sort of there-ish. Do the same thing on this side. Sort of collapse that up, jeez. Not the easiest thing in the world to do. That's probably not good. This one's solid, that one wiggles. Anyway, I got the elbows about as collapsed as they'll go. This one doesn't like to go in as far on the top, but it collapses the same amount anyway. Rotate the head around, bring up the falcon head, tuck the head in there. Sits flat enough. Then you want to come down to the legs. I like pushing this in just to make it less likely to scratch it, but that's not necessary. It gets out of the way on its own. You bring these back all the way, flatten out the feet, bring these down again. Then, I'm going to collapse down the knees. And 1, 2, ow. 3 clicks. You still want a little bit of a gap there. And you want to pull down the extra joint here. You want to make sure that it's all the way out, which is a little bit finicky. You want to make sure it gets that extra last little click so you can see the rivet in there. And that allows you to bend it all the way. Then just do the same thing on the other side. This might not look great right now, but that's because you have to pull down these little tabs on the back of the leg there. That exposes the thrusters, but also it lets you bring down this hinge. Bring up the little stabilizers up about that far-ish. They don't lock into place or anything, just get them even and about... Yeah, that'll do. And you kind of just want to straighten out the legs a little bit so that it sits flush. Good enough, nothing locks in, but it's nice and sturdy. And there you have the big Falcon. It looks pretty much dead-on accurate, I mean, aside from the obvious redesign stuff, but the actual transformation is pretty much perfect. I do really appreciate the fact that they actually worked in the thrusters back there and the legs you wouldn't even think that that hinge is there, because this really locks that in. You wouldn't think the thigh actually comes apart like that. Alright, and now to do the other half of the transformation. You want to go in here and press on the thrusters themselves. Probably easier to just move this stuff all out of the way. This might not be the easiest thing to do on camera. If I have to jump cut, I have to jump cut. But basically, press in on this and then pull this out. Actually, I am going to jump cut because this is going to take a minute. And of course I say that, and one of the tabs holding the thigh on broke. I was pressing in properly because only one of them broke. Because of course it would be, wouldn't it? How well does it hold in without it? Not at all. I'm going to finish the review, but I am going to send them an email about that, because I was doing it properly, but something was wrong. The only thing is, I don't really know how I could disassemble this to actually swap that part off, because this is riveted in. They'd probably have to send me a whole new torso. So that's fun. Okay, so... I genuinely don't believe that was my fault, because there's no stress. I didn't hear a snap when I pulled it off. It came off with, like, no pressure. The first one I took off was fine, so I'm pretty sure that was an actual, like, manufacturing defect. Right, anyway, the last couple of things that need to be done is pop off this panel here. Wait. Yes, this is the left leg. I wish I had been recording now, because, like, it genuinely just came right off, like, clean. Like, there was no stress at all. It just fell off. Yeah, and this doesn't want to go in now. Anyway, that goes on. You press it all the way in, but I'm not going to. Oh, man. Stress out the ass with that. I don't even want to take off this one to put the hose on, to be honest. I don't want to tempt fate and break and have something else break on me. Swap this panel for this one. And this comes around the back of the leg and plugs in there. Oh, this has ruined not my day, my week, honestly. Maybe even my month. This is horrible. I hate this. Anyway, the point is you straighten these legs up a little bit, and that's not going to stay on either, apparently. And these just slide on onto these. And you get the strike. I don't really want to finish this review, but I'm going to have to, aren't I? Alright. Give me a second. The thing is, I was extra careful too, because this is a fucking $300 figure, so of course I'm going to be extra careful. You know, I put no force into it at all. It just came off like clean, so I don't. It had to have been like a factory issue. Like I can't imagine that was my fault. Man, that has ruined my mood for the rest of this review. That's really unfortunate. Especially for the price. You think they would, you know, not do the way they did that? Like, at least use a spring or something instead of paper-thin plastic? Because that's what it was. You see, that one clicked in perfectly fine. No trouble at all. $200 figure, and they used paper-thin clips to hold on to thighs. I was going to get this a really high review, but, yeah, that is bad engineering, to say the least. Now, normally I would break out my little cutting mat and, you know, show off the size of this thing, but honestly, it's so big that it would be like that. So, breaking out the ruler for once, you can't really see the lines, but yeah, it's about 25 centimeters tall. This thing is huge. Normally I do a cool wrap-up, you know, cool pose for this kind of stuff, but I don't know if I want to. If you're seeing one, cool. If not, well, you know why. This is a really nice figure. The paint is excellent, the sculpting is amazing, the redesign is really, really good. I had no problems with QC on it, apparently, except for that. I tempted fate by separating it to review, I know that. I will make an update if they repair this for me. I really hope they do. And honestly, if you don't plan on separating the thighs, I do recommend getting this. It is a really good figure, aside from that one glaring issue. Just don't separate the legs for the strike vehicle and I don't have any complaints. I was gonna try to repair this, but I'm gonna see if I hear back from them first. And that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted for future reviews. Come chill in the Discord. Follow me on Twitter, if that's even still around. And consider supporting me on Patreon so I can keep bringing you videos like this. And, as always, until next time, happy building.